The next session we're going to go straight into is the new face of face-to-face. Try saying that out loud. I'm pretty sure Catherine titled that just to try and make me mess it up. So the new face of face-to-face, or the NF of F2F. We're going to be going over to Jean-Paul Kogan from ONG Conseil. He's going to be chairing this. And with him, he's got Nidux D'Souza from Up Fundraising, Session Singh from Team Street Fundraising Solutions. And I have seen Session is in the chat today, or he was in the chat today. So hopefully he's still here. He's a fascinating guy. And Begonia Lavinia from Save the Children in Mexico. So they are all on this panel now. I'm going to hand it over to Jean-Paul, and then hopefully we're going to get a couple of them or a few of them on for some live Q&A afterwards. So do keep putting your questions in the chat box. Do keep asking, and let's just keep talking about it. All right, straight across to the next session, and I will see you on the other side. Thank you.
Very pleased to have been asked by the program committee to moderate this panel titled New Face of Face-to-Face. And just before beginning, how comes this idea of such a panel? Generally, in all the fundraising summits, we share with experts, very experienced, very skilled, it's true. But very often we forget that behind this huge success of face-to-face fundraising all over the world, there are men and women working as face-to-face fundraisers with a huge sense of commitment, extraordinary skills and personalities. Considering the 60 face-to-face markets all over the world, there are 10,000 of them speaking all the time, constantly, to fundraise for all the causes we want to grow. They have been hit very hard by the pandemic crisis. Maybe they have been the first to be hit, and maybe this crisis gives us the opportunity to consider with all our energy and creativity what is our social duty of care towards them. Maybe the idea of sustainability isn't only for the face-to-face fundraising channel, economically speaking, but also for the sustainability of their work and even, let's say the word, even their career. So we have today some fantastic panelists to debate with us about it, and they all have a huge experience in face-to-face fundraising. Let me just briefly say some words about them before they introduce themselves. So we have Begonia Lavina Soriano, Head of Fundraising for Save the Children Mexico, and previously Head of Fundraising for Greenpeace Mexico for many years. Save the Children, like Greenpeace or UNHCR, have been huge skill share networks for face-to-face fundraising all over the world for years. Nidux D'Souza, Vice President of the Canadian provider Up Fundraising, trustee for the nonprofit Livingstone Tanzania Trust, previously head director of the nonprofit the Hala Foundation, very interesting nonprofit dedicated to empowering farmers across Africa. So before dealing with fundraising tools, Nidux's career has been first into the causes we are fundraising for. And Sachin Singh, co-founder and CEO of the face-to-face supplier Team Street Fundraising Solutions, based in India, previously head of fundraising of Amnesty International India, and before that, Sachin was also Greenpeacer, working for Greenpeace India for over 12 years. And I will just add that Sachin is only 37 with a 13 experience in fundraising. So now I give you the floor to introduce yourself. Let's begin with Begonia, and then Nidux, and then Sachin. Begonia.
Thank you, Jean-Paul, and thank you for inviting me to this conversation that I'm sure it's going to be super interesting. Well, as you said, I'm the fundraising director in Save the Children Mexico for now, but I also started my career as a face-to-face fundraiser like years ago. So I would say I've been in fundraising for 15, 16 years, starting as a facer, and that's why maybe I'm so passionate about this channel.
Great. Nidux?
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. Really excited to be here and to join all of you in this really, really important conversation. I am the Vice President of Strategy and Marketing at Up Fundraising. We operate across North America, and now in a time of COVID, we're actually expanding to other geographies. You know, face-to-face fundraising, I remember my early days when I was living in London, England, and it was in, you know, the early 2000s when you used to always see face-to-face fundraisers on Oxford Street and everywhere you turned. And being in the sector, it was always interesting for me to see it in practice in those early days and how it's changed over the years. And, you know, we go through these sort of waves, and this is another wave. So really excited to be a part of this, what I think is probably one of the most important conversations in fundraising right now.
Great. Thank you. Sachin?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this session. As you said that, I mean, I'm 37, and the reason I have 18 years of experience is because I started when I was 19 years of age. And my first job was of a face-to-face fundraiser at Greenpeace. And I think this is something that I really love doing. And I thoroughly enjoy the adventure that is there, that comes with the numbers that you deal with day after day, month after month. And I think as, you know, this topic of conversation is very, very important, especially in the times that we live in. And I just co-founded Team Street Fundraising Solutions. There is an interesting story behind why I founded this during the pandemic time. I'll come to that later. But yeah, that's me. We are there in about 5 cities with a 70-member fundraising team.
Great, and congratulations. So I'd like to start now with this first question. Through this huge pandemic crisis, have you changed your manager, expert, general idea on the social aspects of our field force of fundraisers? I propose that we start with Sachin, as you already had a huge experience in taking care of social employment, security, when Amnesty International India was politically obliged to close.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, it was an unfortunate situation to be in. I was with Amnesty for about 5 years, and we had built a very solid, good team. You know, it was a team across 5 cities, 150 fundraisers doing excellent work. But for whatever reasons, you know, I mean, without getting into the details of it, it shut down. I mean, we lived through the pandemic over the last 4-5 months. We had people who were doing different kinds of jobs. We did not fire anybody. They were doing telecalling, telemarketing. But for whatever reasons, we had to shut down. And in 2 weeks, 100-member team, no idea what they were to do next. And we had 2 options in front of us. I mean, we thought of going our own separate ways and go and work with different kind of organizations. And what happened was, the exciting thing that came was, the team was so connected to each other that they said, instead of going our separate ways and losing the USP, which is working together, the kind of culture that we built, why don't we do something together? And I think that was the reason. And I thought that, you know, there is a lot of value in this, because what sometimes you do is you do end up having the money side of things. When you're starting up, investment is what a lot of people look at. But I think what we are doing is, we are starting with a lot of human capital with zero investment, but so much of confidence that the team is like, if we are together, we'll be able to do great things. And I think with that thought, we are starting with no money in our pockets, but just that belief that we will sail through. And I think we will be launching on 2nd of November a team of about 70 people, collective experience of 200 years plus. And I think I have never been so excited, you know, before, especially when you lose your job, that excitement goes. But I think I'm in a different kind of zone altogether. And so is the case with most of the team members. So that's where we are. And I think it's important that most of the times what happens in the development sector is, you talk about sustainability of the organization. But I think what is important is, the sustainability of the organization stays when the people who work for it, they themselves feel secured, you know, safe. And I think that's the kind of discussion that needs to happen as well. And we are quite excited to take on this journey. And the single motto that we will have is, because I will be working with an agency for the for the first time. I mean, I've been used to working with organizations. So what the motto has been very clear that whatever money the agency makes, the first stakeholder of that is the person who is standing on the street and asking money. And I think the management take the cut, and we are much more privileged in comparison to a lot of people who are there on the ground. And I think we need to take care of them because we are there because of them. So that will be the motto, and we hope to do well in India. There's a huge market, a lot of opportunities, and we've got a wonderful team.
Great to hear that, and it's so exciting to see you. I don't know what's the. I know you have 75 people working for you. What's the size of your apartment in?
So we don't have an office. I mean, the first training took place. The first training took place at somebody's house, and that's how we are starting. You know, doing trainings in different offices. The people and the network that I've built, and people are quite supportive. They're quite excited, looking forward to support us, work with us, and I think that's quite promising.
You know, in fact, to hear you, it's something really pleasant because you can see that you've been a team leader of face-to-face fundraisers because you're really taking care of your fundraisers. And in fact, the fundraisers very often, they work, of course, for the cause, but they work also for their team leader. And so that's probably one of the reasons why you've got 75 people working for you right now for Team Street, and I hope you the greatest success as possible. And coming back to this idea of being sustainable, I would like to Begona maybe to speak about our experience with Save the Children in Mexico, because you had a very special experience with your providers as you're doing in-house programs and also providers programs.
Yeah, right. Totally. We have a mixed model in Save the Children Mexico, as you were saying, Jean-Paul. We had 3 agencies at the beginning of the pandemic and an in-house team, which was growing, but now it has stopped, around 20, 25 people. So when the crisis arrived, we had to do something. And we, as social organization, have a special strict duty of care through our staff and our teams. We cannot preach that, you know, we have to change the world and not taking care of our own people, right? So more than changing the vision, because this social duty of care was part of the vision that we had already, the crisis forced us to make it true, right? So we had to think everything, all the solutions that some time came up, but now we made it reality. And so we try we maintain all the conditions that we have with the in-house team and also with the agencies. They cannot go out, so we had to provide the agencies with enough workload to keep their own facers. So we started a program of recovery, some prospects that they have, and we handed them some databases to work with, so they don't have to fire anyone. And also with the in-house team, we move all the team to lead conversion program. The advantage that we have is that we have an in-house call center, so everything can, so what we ended doing is to grow a team of not facers, but telemarketers, but our sales force, let's say. And they are now much more united. They have had twice a week trainings and meetings, you know, so all this team spirit that is so important in face-to-face has not been lost, unfortunately. So that's what we have been doing. And I have to say that this requires a lot of backup from the organization. So if the organization is committed with this social duty of care, you can do it as a manager. In this case, our CEO was truly supportive. They understood not only that this, if we close the program, this will impact in the future because we will have a long time to recover, but also for the people that is working for us. They are the ones, they are our face in the street day by day. So I think this understanding is totally important for the ones who have to face situations like this.
Thank you very much, Begona. It's really interesting to see this cooperation. And there's the cooperation, but there's also the opportunity to explore other channels, and through the containments or restrictions, there has been some opportunities for exploring new channels, new face-to-face fundraising channels, or fundraising channels, not exactly telemarketing, not exactly face-to-face fundraising, and Neduk with that fundraising did something really extraordinary, and I would like to speak a bit about it. So
yes, thank you, Jean-Paul. You know, Sachin, your experience, and Begonia, your experience on with what's happening with face-to-face on the street was exactly what happened to all of our teams across North America, right? Literally overnight, all of a sudden, everything vanished. Jean-Paul, your experience as well, I'm sure. So, you know, one of the things that we have been very cognizant of as an agency is to, pre-pandemic, has always been to sort of identify different ways that we can also think about expanding what our suite of services are, largely because we have always thought that we wanted to try and also give our fundraisers a fundraising career. And what does that actually mean? And so actually about over a year ago now, we started exploring with some new technology, video messaging and storytelling. We call it VMS. And we really identify this as the, you know, a brand new channel, a new way of engaging face-to-face with, you know, the donor directly and with our fundraisers, you know, where the personalities of our fundraisers, the passion in making the ask, in having a conversation and saying thank you and talking about the cause is still there through the video message, right? And so it's something that we believe is actually here to stay. You know, I think, you know, COVID definitely accelerated you know, our move into VMS. You know, even though we've been sort of engaging with VMS prior to the pandemic, in COVID, all of a sudden it opened up so many more opportunities for us because everyone else was, you know, trying to identify ways to engage. And while we also, you know, took a lot of our fundraisers and moved them into telemarketing as well, you know, we recognize that the best way for us to try and expand and keep, you know, essentially everyone employed as much as possible was to also really try and develop this new channel in a much deeper way. And so it's something that we believe is in many ways the best of face-to-face in a world that is living in a pandemic where we are locked down, where we can engage the incredible skill sets of our fundraisers who have the very unique ability to actually ask for money. And I think that's a really important skill set that a lot of times, you know, people believe that, you know, I think you can generally put anyone on the phone. You can generally put anyone in front of a video camera and say, hi, can I ask for, you know, 10 euros or $10? And all of a sudden, you know, people, you know, freeze because they can't. It's not for everyone. And I think that's such a unique skill set that all of our, you know, street fundraisers around the world have this ability to connect, to make the ask, to understand also when to make the ask, right? With video messaging, you know, while you may not see the donor directly, what you are able to convey is your passion, right? For the cause that you're asking for, and the delivery of it is highly authentic. And so I'm really excited to continue to share with you over the course of this panel a little bit more about how we really believe that this is a way to continue to protect our industry in many ways as well.
Thank you, Neduk. I think it will be very interesting for all our attendees during this crisis, and that's such a huge tool that you're just experiencing. So, just congratulations. And then Sachin and then Begonia, do you think that in the next future we'll be able to build socially crisis-proof work organization models for face-to-face fundraisers? And maybe what's your vision within the next years, even after the crisis, because there will be an end to the crisis. We know it's going to last some months again, but there will be an end. So after that, because there might be also some other crisis, because maybe it can happen again, and we know that. So what would be your vision for a social crisis-proof work organization for face-to-face fundraisers? Sachin and then Begonia.
So I feel that there are a lot of things that needs to be done to ensure that we are, crisis proof. I think one of the things that a lot of organizations do is they think about building their reserves. So when you're talking about building your reserves, you think from the point of view of, okay, we'll be able to carry out a programmatic pieces of work. But I think we should be thinking of reserves not in terms of just programmatic pieces, but also people. What do we do with that? I think even if you are able to pay a little less, that's okay, instead of firing somebody. So I would say that from financial point of view and operations point of view, I would say that we should build this kind of resilience that come this crisis, you are not panicking and saying, okay, let's get rid of people as quickly as we can. So I would say that that's one thing. The other thing that I feel is that I think crisis, if we need to be crisis proof, this is my message to all the fundraisers and also people who manage them, is that we need to be aware that this is not the only thing that we should be good at. I think if you are a face-to-face fundraiser, you can do many other things. I mean, I've been a face-to-face fundraiser, I've been a mobilization manager, I've done major donor fundraising, and let me tell you very frankly, none of this is rocket science. It's basic KPIs, you can talk well, you have the passion and commitment. It is just about learning these new skills. And I think all of us need to invest the time and energy, both from the fundraiser side and also from the management side, to ensure that people are learning new things. If a fundraiser joins you today, whether it is a telemarketing person or a face-to-face person, in the next 6 months, they should just not be limited to that space. Their understanding should be much more than what they were hired for. And I think that onus lies with us to ensure that we are building people who are capable of doing many things rather than just being, focused on doing one thing. So I think these are some ways through which we can, ensure that we are crisis proof.
Great, thank you. Begonia?
Yes, I think I'm just going to rephrase Sachin, because what he said is totally true. And so I think the key for being a crisis proof is to be resilient. And this means not only economic reserves, as Sachin said, I think skill set reserve, as you were saying, right? So fundraising in general has 3 or 4 elements in common in every channel, and making our fundraisers familiar with this, underlying KPIs and what's the logic behind it, and these kind of things can help to be more resilient for them. So once if they have to move to digital, or if they have to move to the phone, or if they have to start doing another kind of face-to-face, as the initiative Niduk is leading, they are ready because they know the fundamentals of fundraising, right? And this, I think it can be done with more integration between all the teams, the different channels, and this kind of internal skill shares that we can conduct from now on. So everyone understands a bit better the work that the other one is doing, and also can find maybe more passion about major donor or middle donor, or retention programs. There are a lot of things to do in fundraising, and all of them are important. So I think, yeah, as Sachin was saying, I think building reserve of skill sets on the team to have a more diverse team would help a lot if another crisis comes. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Following this whole concept, do you think that this crisis, in fact, forces us to rethink our management model as far as face-to-face human resources goes. You were speaking something about sustainability. We are speaking. You were all speaking, the three of you, about the skills, and we are speaking now about flexibility and polyvalence. In fact, so what would be the key indicators for a better management of the human resources? So then perhaps Niduk, and then perhaps Begonia. Niduk?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a fantastic question, Jean-Paul, because it really forces on the agency, as well as, I think, on the onus on the charity, the NGO, to understand and weigh the importance of face-to-face fundraising first and foremost, right? I think you have to the first step that we have to take is to say, well, how important is this as a sector to all of us as a whole? Because when you start to understand and give it the necessary weight, you then begin to allocate the resources so that, you know, that you can be crisis proof. And so in this crisis, what we have found is that perhaps that has been not a priority, right? And so I think this is the opportunity that we have as a community of fundraisers, as a community of people who are engaging in this specific channel, to come together, really come together, and to begin to say, you know what, because we believe in it, we are going to always ensure that there is a degree of investment made available. And those investments will help to actually create a buffer in some sense, right? Around how we actually resource all of our, you know, our fundraisers that are working in teams in different parts of the community world. So, you know, this pandemic, in my opinion, has been a real game changer for us to identify how important this channel has been. Jean-Paul, you know, you and I've had conversations about how, you know, everyone for decades now has said face-to-face is going to go. It's going to be taken over. Something else is going to come in. Digital, right? And I mean, I'm here talking to you guys about digital, you know, in so many ways, because we do believe that this is, you know, a future, but it is a future. I think there will always be fundraisers, you know, standing on the street, talking to donors face to face. And so we have to make sure that we continue to invest in that space, because it's going to still, I believe, you know, be one of the largest areas for individual giving around the world, because there's nothing that's actually going to replace that one-to-one conversation in person, right? And that's the key. And very often, you know, again, remembering, you know, it's very often the only time that donor has an interaction with the charity, right? The only time that there's a human interaction face to face in person, right? And so I think, you know, when we look at the, you know, how the crisis specifically is forcing us to rethink how we manage it, to Begonia and Sachin's point, you know, there is that training that needs to continue, so that when things open up again, we can have that fluidity of going from telephone, going from video, you know, back onto knocking on doors, talking to people in streets and in retail locations, and really understanding what that training needs to look like, so that what we are doing in crisis is we are resourcing our staff with the skill sets that they need to be resilient, because ultimately pandemics, you know, I don't think this is going to be the last, in my opinion. You're on mute.
Sorry, I didn't get my microphone. So anyway, I just said I do completely agree with you. We have to keep them alive. This field force is just that's our richness. I mean, we are speaking about Session. You have a little flat in Delhi, but you're just creating a startup, but you're rich of 75 people working for you, and for all the causes you're working for. I mean, that's just the reality, and we are all this way. It's the same for Save the Children, and it's the same for the providers, whether it's up fundraising or some other fundraising all over the world. So that's really what we are rich of. So thinking about this, I was just thinking about another thing. Very often when we're speaking about fundraising, we speak about the donor journey. We are hiring we are recruiting new donors, and then how to keep them as donors. What about retention? And I don't know if we have this same question about fundraisers. And in fact, we should. There's a fundraiser's journey probably to build, and that's part of the human resources that we have to build. And that's something that's probably going to change who the fundraisers are within the next future, most probably. So I would like to ask you, maybe first Begonia and then Sachin, who do you think will be our fundraisers within the next years, knowing that we are just aware that we have to keep them skills alive, we have to enrich it, we have to create a donor fundraisers journey for them. Who will they be?
Yes, for me, I think another opportunity that this crisis would bring is that a lot of people will be needing working, different profiles that we already have in our team. Generally, face-to-face team are young people, summer jobs, these kind of things. And I think this is the opportunity that we can take to really make people think about a fundraising career, as Niduk was doing with their teams. If older people joins, they have a different set of skills, and they have a different approach to the people in the streets. And I think that's an opportunity that we need to take, not to let it pass, and start looking for these people that really wants a job, that's going to be committed with the cause, also with the work they're doing, and they can be with us for a long time, right? And in that sense, our responsibility is to really give them this journey where they can keep learning all the way. First face-to-face skills, then fundraising skills, then teamwork skills. We have, a huge box with tools that we can provide. And I would think in an opportunity like that. Yeah. You're muted again, Jean-Paul.
Yeah, Sachin, to go on. Thank you, Begana.
So I would say that, now that we go back on the field again, whenever that happens, I would say that, we should not be compartmentalizing people into face-to-face telemarketing. I would say that I would just call them fundraisers or frontline campaigners, and who could be put into whatever basket that they can be put in. I think the journey of a fundraiser, what needs to be done is we need to understand that what are their aspirations, and whether the aspirations can be fulfilled by your organization or agency. And even if the organization and agency that they're working for doesn't have the capacity to fulfill that aspiration, you should help and support your team member, even if that means that team member leaving and joining somewhere else. I think that's what real journey would mean. And I think it's completely okay to let go and see people grow, even if they go and work somewhere else. I think that should be completely okay. But in terms of coming back to work, not compartmentalizing them, skilling them up to ensure that they are better prepared and they can grow faster.
Right. It's exactly, in fact, what we are going towards. Keeping in the end, keeping the field force alive needs more polyvalence, more open-minded way of managing them. Meaning that until now we had telemarketing agencies, face-to-face agencies, and mailing agencies and event agencies. But in fact, basically, we are all fundraisers, and we have fundraisers working for us. And most probably, it's what we have to grow within the next years, and it will be very efficient within the next year, and for the next crisis, if there is any other. Finally, just to finish up, because the time is becoming quite near the 40 minutes we have. Do you have any final comments that you would like to share with us? What would be a key word for innovation in keeping alive and taking care of our field force? We can begin with Begonia, and then Niduk, and then Sachin.
Sure, thank you. For me, the key word is trust. What we have seen during these 10 months is that we need to trust each other. You know, our field force trusts the organization trusts the field force, the skills that we have there, the passion that we have there, and the same with the agencies. This crisis has opened a whole new floor for conversations where everyone is committed to be better, like, because we have to. It's the only way, right? So I think trust would be my key word. And my final comment is a thank you for my face-to-face manager, Hector, which is great. And that has, you know, served this crisis in an amazing way. So thanks for that.
Great, thank you. Niduk?
Yeah, a key word I think for us is relationships, because, you know, very similar to trust. You know, if you're going to be building relationships at any point of a fundraiser's journey, you know, it is very much rooted in building a relationship, a reciprocal relationship, you know, founded on trust and many other sort of, you know, keywords. But I think also, you know, for us, that part of building that relationship is also, you know, building that relationship with, understanding how to build that relationship with the donors ongoing in different ways, building relationships with agencies, with NGOs, as a community as well as then from, you know, fundraiser who's out being employed by agency or NGO. And so, you know, I think to protect, and I think that's also a very important word. So 2 words, Jean-Paul, sorry. You know, to protect our field force so that we don't necessarily become, you know, a hamster wheel of recruitment, right? Because sometimes that is the case too. We have to focus on also identifying other channels, which, you know, for us at Up Fundraising, VMS and the use of video as a way to continue to upskill, diversify skill sets, enhance what we're doing already, right? In terms of fundraising in slightly different ways across different programs. So I think, you know, it always comes down to relationships and how important is a relationship to you. And if you start from that point, you know, you can then start to see the hub and spoke from, you know, the different NGOs but at the root, at the center, most people put the donor, and actually it's not the donor, it's actually the fundraiser.
Great. Sachin.
So for me, I think it will be again 2 words: stay hungry and keep learning. I would say that what it's a very dominant force, the face-to-face fundraising community. It's a very, quite an aggressive bunch of people, very fun-loving, ambitious, driven. And I think what is important is we need to be aware. 20 years back, there was hardly digital, there was hardly DRTV, there was hardly, multiple channels of fundraising didn't exist, but they do exist now. We need to be aware of the channels that exist, the thing that they bring to the table, instead of being like, we are the best. We need to understand our gaps and ensure that we deliver and we deliver better than what we used to do in the past. And I think we need to keep doing that year after year. And I'm sure that this is a strand of work that will grow. So I think that's from me. Keep learning.
Thank you very much, Sachin, and thank you for the very three of you. So trust, protect, multi-channel, community, learning, and I would add something else which would be coherence, meaning we are working for solidarity, non-profits. How could we not be not have any solidarity towards our workers? So that's one first point which is really important, and that's probably the last point of this session. And as a conclusion, I would say that against the background of a crisis, we have to rethink our way of face-to-face fundraising. There is the COVID crisis, and there might be some other crisis within the next years, and we know that. So our face-to-face fundraisers force field, has to be protected, and it will give us the opportunity to be able to count on them. Meaning it won't be only social, it's also economical. And this needs sustainable work and human resources organizations. It needs also a huge cooperation between non-profits, providers, and regulatory bodies. And that's a very extremely important issue for all of us, technically, ethically, safely. So thank you very much to our very experienced and visionary panelists. And let's go on now with the Q&A session.